you ask an entrepreneur what the challenge is in their business, they'll tell you it's money. But you'll sit down with this entrepreneur, and when you unpack, you'll realize your challenge is not actually money. I always ask entrepreneurs, even when walking this journey with them, if today I was to tell you to use all your life savings and put it in your business, would you actually do that? And if they hesitate, I'm like, exactly, why would an investor do it? You do not have to start as a climate enterprise. Probably that's where most people feel they're left out, or most entrepreneurs feel probably I'm not playing within this space. But actually coming to assess your business model further, you'd realize you're actually addressing, the impacts of climate change at a certain level. The opportunity is vast. Let me start there, because then looking at the climate sector itself, there's a lot that then comes into play. For instance, looking at various subsectors, there's renewable energy, there's nature-based solutions, there's sustainable agriculture, there's waste management and circularity. So there's a lot that then can be tapped into within the climate space. And entirely, enterprises do not need to start as a climate enterprise.
Welcome to Sustainably Speaking Africa, a podcast about reshaping narratives around sustainability and climate action in Africa. This podcast is brought to you by the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre and is made at Semabox. Join us for this and other episodes as we talk to industry leaders, frontline communities, and the innovators who are accelerating the progress towards a greener, sustainable future.
Very welcome to this episode on Sustainably Speaking Africa. Today we speak to Eunice Maraga, a professional who is at the forefront of supporting enterprises in the climate space, whether it is access to finance, whether it is business acceleration or incubation. And we will be hearing from an insider perspective of what it entails to support ventures in the space, what it entails to work with enterprises across different sectors, whether it's circular economy, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's sustainable agriculture. And this will give us a very interesting perspective of what it really takes to nurture some of these enterprises. Very welcome, Eunice Maraga.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in
pleasure.
In this particular episode. Now, Eunice, you're a senior investment advisor or analyst, if I can call it that, at the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre. Okay. What does that work entail, and why does it matter so much?
Basically, it's investment into climate enterprises. At Kenya Climate Innovation Centre, we basically support climate entrepreneurs across different thematic sectors that definitely fall under climate and address the impacts of climate change. So supporting these enterprises, there's different levels to it. And where I sit now is more on the investment aspect, that over and above having worked with these enterprises, there's the need for some catalytic capital to enable them to commercialize further, scale up, and create, the intended impact that they need to create within the space. So that's where I sit, basically dealing with the investment aspect to this within this space.
Now, one of the main reasons why we do this podcast, one of the main reasons why we do this podcast is to really get to advance sustainability through narratives of change. And you've talked about these different sectors, you've talked about the different entrepreneurs that you work with. What is the opportunity that is there in this space, and why does it mean so much to you?
The opportunity is vast. Let me start there, because then looking at the climate sector itself, there's a lot that then comes into play. For instance, looking at various subsectors, there's renewable energy, there's nature-based solutions, there's sustainable agriculture, there's waste management and circularity. So there's a lot that then can be tapped into within the climate space. And entirely, enterprises do not need to start as a climate enterprise, you can incorporate, sustainability along the way. Because then this is what we've seen with some of the enterprises. Somebody started off, more on the commercial angle, but eventually with support, with refining their business models, they're able to realize, actually, I can be able to address some of the impacts of climate change. For example, if they've been producing waste along a certain aspect or at a certain point in the value chain, then helping them to realize this and actually offering them solutions that you can manage this waste, and over and above, for example, managing this waste, you can actually create additional revenue from that. Why this matters most to me is mostly on the impact angle, looking at the point when, for instance, an enterprise, you start walking the journey with an enterprise, and the end results of it all, that's the most satisfying bit of it all, yeah? Making an entrepreneur realize their full potential, the impact they can create, and just taking them out of a certain box that they had envisioned earlier makes it all the more worthwhile. Yeah.
So the impact and the potential it has, in terms of changing livelihoods, changing in terms of climate action and all that. You mentioned about, climate entrepreneurs and the opportunity that is there. But there are lots of buzzwords when it comes to matters climate change, when it comes to matters sustainability. What does it really mean when you talk about a climate enterprise? What is that? And I say that because you say that you don't have to start as a climate enterprise or a sustainable venture. So can you debunk that or just break that down for maybe the viewers or listeners who do not understand the difference?
From where I sit, you do not have to start as a climate enterprise. Probably that's where most people feel they're left out, or most entrepreneurs feel probably I'm not playing within this space. But actually coming to assess your business model further, you'd realize you're actually addressing the impacts of climate change at a certain level. And then what you'd need to do at that point is expound further and find ways to escalate or sort of trying to find the right words, actually tap into the climate angle within your business. I've given the example of the waste management aspect. Could be even in agriculture, where, for instance, you are in dairy farming and that's your core business, but then there's the waste from the cattle that then can convert into biogas, and the biogas can be used in multiple ways. But then if, for instance, a dairy farmer has not received the necessary awareness to be able to realize that there's actually an opportunity within this, and that opportunity could convert the enterprise to incorporate a climate angle, then, there's sort of a missing link. So from where I sit, you do not need to have started as a climate enterprise. It's how you incorporate the model of a climate angle within your business that then we can actually acknowledge and say that you are actually a climate entrepreneur or a climate enterprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you talk about that angle of climate, climate action entails either mitigation or adaptation. What trends do you see from an enterprise support perspective in terms of the opportunity and in terms of the prevalence of ventures in those two sectors in the African context?
Great. For mitigation, I feel more of what is thriving at the moment, and even where most investment is going, is under renewable energy. That has really picked up within the space that we are in, and gradually, even now, going granular within the renewable energy aspect. There's now the productive use of solar energy that now focuses on incorporating renewable energy at the production level. So that is thriving. E-mobility is coming up, but then looking at the capital-intensive nature of the sector and just developing the necessary infrastructure for it to thrive within our economy or within our context, it will take some time, but it's also coming up. That's within mitigation, because then mitigation is looking at minimizing the impacts of climate change. And adaptation, what is actually thriving the most is matters to do with agriculture, sustainable agriculture, from climate smart agriculture, for instance, use of drought resistant seed varieties that then can be able to withstand the test of time in drought, for example, ASAL regions. So that aspect of climate smart agriculture is thriving more in terms of adaptation within this context.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to, supporting these ventures, hand-holding these entrepreneurs, what are you looking at as someone on this other side of supporting enterprises? What do you look for? How do you go through the process of supporting them to get to the point where now you're seeing the impact that you're talking about? What does that look like?
From my seat, it starts from having the right idea, and the right mindset, the right entrepreneurial mindset. Because you meet an entrepreneur, look at what they're doing, and you can tell that if this venture is nurtured, it's going to create impact. And that's where the journey starts, yeah? You'll meet enterprises at different levels. And I appreciate the work that we also do at KCIC, because then we support enterprises at different levels. At the incubation level, which is more of early stage enterprises, idea stage, but then also at acceleration level, which is more of growth stage enterprises that then have launched into the market, established themselves, and they're more looking into expansion, growth, and the likes. So the fact that then you're able to support enterprises across these different stages, you're able to start walking the journey with them from different levels. And going back to my point of looking at an enterprise and seeing the potential impact, then now actually starting to nurture them and helping them reach their full potential. Could be at the idea stage that you look at an idea, or at whether it's early stage, and with the right business advisory support, them getting the necessary technical assistance, them being exposed to, partners or people who could collaborate with them within that innovation, then they're able to get steps ahead. If it's at the growth stage, you look at a business that then if you incorporate or refine their business model further, they could be able to create more impact in terms of the jobs, in terms of carbon emissions mitigation, in terms of even waste reduction within the environment. Yeah.
You talk about, supporting these different components, whether it is capacity building, technical assistance, and all that. But usually entrepreneurs, not just in the sustainable space, but entrepreneurs generally, for most of them, the most important thing is money, access to finance, capital. Why is it so important that all these other aspects are also ticked before you get to access to finance? And what do you look for as a potential investor in an enterprise before you put money into it, whether it is capital expenditure or operational expenditure? So you can unpack both aspects of that question in the sense that why is all these other holistic suite of support so important, and not just finance? And when it comes to access to finance, what are the pointers? What's the magic bullet there?
All right. I usually say the biggest challenge we have, especially with enterprises within the Kenyan African context, is that if you ask an entrepreneur what the challenge is in their business, they'll tell you it's money. But you'll sit down with this entrepreneur, and when you unpack, you'll realize your challenge is not actually money. Your challenge is your marketing strategy. Your challenge is you've not done customer development to understand who your actual customer is. Your challenge could be you do not have the necessary certifications to tap into a different market. So having sort of, the pre-support, pre-investment support is very, very necessary, because at this point is when you sit down with an enterprise, get to understand them at their level, get to understand what it is that they're doing, how they're doing it, for whom. And when you realize there's a gap or there's, a missing link, you're able to walk the journey with them to sort of, put the house in order before they're able to absorb financing. One of the biggest challenges and the most unfortunate thing, and we've also seen a lot of enterprises in this space failing, is fundraising, getting the money, then a few months down the line, the business shuts down. They're no longer in operation. If you look further or, poke deeper to understand why, you'll go back and realize this matters to do with the structures, the business model, little things that then could have been addressed or could have been put into order beforehand, or if they had someone hand-holding them further, they could have actually, probably mitigated that. So for me, it is very critical to have the pre-investment support, because at that point, you'll probably realize that the core business model that you're having, there's a big opportunity in something else, and you'd want to pivot to that angle. Or you'd want to incorporate a new revenue stream within what you're currently doing, and that puts you at a better place. So having that journey and walking it with, experts or professionals who understand the whole business model aspect or business support aspect is very critical, because then you're able to realize where the gaps are within your business. And now at the point of investment, I'd say, I don't like often using investor ready, but I'd say you're now more attractable. You can be able to absorb the financing without any hiccups, ideally. Not necessarily entirely zero hiccups, but at least you'll have done the heavy lifting earlier on before the investment comes in.
What you say is interesting. I was in another session, another forum, and one of the investors was saying that sometimes it takes up to 6 months before they are satisfied with the due diligence process, before they can put money into an enterprise or into a venture. And it's a complaint that is also shared by entrepreneurs. Why is this process so long? And why does it take such a long time to get to a point where you feel confident enough? Where can, the ventures, the climate ventures and the investors, where can they meet halfway?
In the middle.
Yeah.
I know it's one of those scenarios where no one is willing to, give way for the other. But look, sitting from an investment point of view, no one is willing to put in money in a venture that they do not have confidence in. It's the same way I always ask entrepreneurs, even when walking this journey with them, if today I was to tell you to use all your life savings and put it in your business, would you actually do that? And if they hesitate, I'm like, exactly, why would an investor do it? So, just having that self-reflection that, are you confident enough that you'd actually use all your life savings to put it in your business? Because then you're at that level where you feel, I'm very confident that this is a business that can thrive. But if you feel you're not, then why would you feel, why would you think someone else would feel comfortable too? And when you hesitate, then that's where we start unpacking. Why would you feel that? You'd say, oh, I'm not sure about this, that. So that's the most important thing. And when you understand the need for due diligence, then for enterprises, then it makes it much easier to work on yourself first. It's just like working on yourself as a person, working on yourself before you meet another person. And it makes it much easier. And for enterprises, and that's what we also do at KCIC, with the incubation and acceleration, we are there to walk the journey with you at your rawest form. Because for certain investors, they actually don't have that time to start hand-holding you. And that's the role of incubators and accelerators. For investors, I'd say, so I've talked about how entrepreneurs need
Just
to...
before you get to the investors part, sorry to cut you short. You're an entrepreneur yourself.
Yes.
Would you put all your life savings into your business?
Oh, yes, I would.
There was like a small hesitation in that.
Okay, let me take it back. Why I wouldn't, I have a valid reason. It's because I'm not in my business full-time at the moment. But if I was operating in it full-time, I would. Yes.
Okay, give us the investor perspective.
Yes. Going back to that, investors want to invest in a business where they're seeing the buy-in of the owner. I don't want to invest in a business and the owner is doing 5 things at the same time. They're not giving attention to their business. So I'm just giving entrepreneurs one of the key things that investors look at. So from an investor's perspective, I think it's about time where investors sort of come to the level and sort of understand enterprises more. Because also what the opportunity lost when it comes to longer due diligence processes is that what could have been achieved in a year, for instance, would take 2-3 years because the process took longer. And because also investors may not be willing to compromise, I think what then, it's just becoming innovative in terms of how else do we go about this process. And there's also a role that entrepreneurs will need to play in this, because it's all about data, because investors want to see the data. They want to be sure that where you're at and what you're doing is something viable. So how do we capacity build and ensure that enterprises they have all the data at their fingertips, and it's verifiable data, not just stories. So yeah, it's a double-sided coin.
Yeah.
From the investor perspective, what tools can be used to enable enterprises to build more of the data that they want to see, so that it sort of narrows the due diligence process. Yeah.
You spoke about your passion for seeing impact, for seeing, ideas get from idea stage to a business to a scaled or commercialized venture. Off the top of your head, with the different sectors that you've supported, what are some of these enterprises that you can mention that you're proud of what they do, the impact they're creating in different communities? It could be across any of the sectors.
Or am I meant to give the enterprise names?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So that people can get to understand that what we're talking about is not just rumors. It's true.
All right. I think I have a number of success stories of the enterprises that I've supported, but one of them being Rehab. This is a client we've worked the journey with for quite some time, and they're one of the biggest irrigation system suppliers in the country. From them starting from just a branch in Nairobi to expanding into Eldoret, and now they're going East African. It's something that has been commendable, and why I like this particular case is because there's that replicative impact in terms of the farmers that they work with, and also promoting sustainable agriculture through it all. Because with this, with the irrigation systems, of course, it's managing water, instead of wasting water at that level. So they're able to promote sustainable agriculture while also creating impact with thousands of farmers. There's also an innovative aspect to it in terms of, I think they're currently doing some IoT sensor models that then can do a bit of soil analysis, can also do, measurement of the amount of water you're using and the likes. So all that combined, I feel like they've grown so much throughout the entire process. And when they joined KCIC, they got some concessional financing. But then also having been exposed in that setting, they were able to fundraise, and it has been a continuous journey all through for them, fundraising back to back. And we'd also, we can attribute it to having gotten that initial support from an incubator that also exposed them to multiple opportunities along the way. Another example is Greystock, and interesting enough, we were on a panel with her yesterday. Someone else we've also really worked the journey with. She does seedling propagation, and seedling propagation as well still has multiple impact, because she works with round about 8,000 farmers. Because when she propagates the seedlings, gets to different farmers across the country. These farmers are able to plant, be it capsicum, be it onions, tomatoes, then at their level, they're able to create jobs at that. So at her level, she's created jobs. At the farmer level, she's created jobs, at maybe once the tomatoes are harvested and the capsicum is harvested, they're able to create jobs at that level of the value chain. So for me, I feel like those are some of the success stories, because you inject capital and you offer support at a certain level, then it replicates and creates that ripple effect through the value chain. Yeah.
I see you're very passionate about sustainable agriculture. Any example you can give us across renewable energy, or which other sector is there? Circular economy, just one.
Yes. Okay, let's go. I didn't realize I was biased.
No.
Maybe
No bias. Sustainable agriculture is really critical as far as the
economy,
climate action and all that is concerned.
All right. So. For renewable energy, I'd speak of TechWin. TechWin does solar-powered dairy units that then the solutions are able to be pushed to those in the off-grid areas, especially ASL regions. So with them, we've also walked the journey with them in terms of creating as much impact to the end users and being able to offer solar-powered, could be storage, could be processing solutions within the dairy industry, and enabling people in the, or, the marginalized in the off-grid areas to be able to also offer solutions within the dairy space without feeling left out because, they're off-grid. That has created impact in terms of creating business opportunities in marginalized communities and, creating, sustainable livelihoods for such enterprises or communities. In terms of waste management.
Before you go to waste, the example you give is very interesting because when people think about solar, many just think about lighting. But this is an example within the productive use of solar energy in different agricultural value chains and the impact it has in off-grid communities, which is still, unfortunately, the case in many parts of just not Kenya, but across the continent. But you're also giving an example in circular economy.
Yes, in circular economy, I think we've walked the journey with Colnet. They do waste collection. And for waste collection, they are able to eventually, they've set up an MRF facility, which then they're able to sort the waste. And then this waste is able to be sold to different off-takers. And eventually the aim is to enable them to also do a bit of value addition to the waste that then they collect and they sort. So this has created impact in terms of course, reduction of waste, which is a big challenge in urban centers in Kenya. We produce quite a large amount of waste within the country. So looking at the urban centers mostly, because then that's where most of the waste is generated. So we're able to support her in terms of getting collection of the waste. So there's jobs created at that level. Then at the level of the MRF, then now eventually getting into value addition later on in her journey. So these are enterprises we've worked the journey with. And we are continuing to work this journey with them to enable them to create as much impact as they can in terms of jobs, in terms of waste management, and creating even products from the waste generated within the urban centers.
And in terms of improving livelihoods.
Yes, key parts.
Oh, yes. Because that question was so important because sometimes when you speak about climate entrepreneurship, the kind of support, incubation, acceleration, people think it's just buzzwords. But when you show some of these, tangible innovations, people that have addresses, people can actually look for them and interact with their products. It really goes a long way. But as we wrap this up, the conversation around climate change has unfortunately always been controversial. So there are people who say climate change is a hoax. This is not happening. This is happening. As someone who is actively in this space and as a young person, why is it so important that young people are at the forefront of championing some of these solutions? And to the naysayers around the existence of climate change in the first place, what would you say?
I think probably we've already started feeling the impacts of climate change. Probably the naysayers, 20 years down the line, they'll actually be hit hard, and we don't want it to get there. And as you say, that's why we need to start addressing these challenges at this point. We don't want it to get to a point where, where it's not salvageable. That we are already feeling the gradual effects in terms of the droughts, the floods, crops that, agriculture, we can't even predict rain, for instance, at this point, like we used to probably a few years ago. So coming up with timely solutions at this point, very critical. And for the young entrepreneurs, young innovators, it's our time because if we do not do it now, we are the ones who are going to feel the harsh impacts of climate change. So it's upon us. We do not need to wait for anyone to save us. We are the ones who can be able to save ourselves. And it starts with looking around us and realizing where are these, where we're feeling the challenges the most. For instance, if you walk around, if you see Nairobi River, just looking at it, you can see the waste. It's not a story that someone has written somewhere. Yeah. When you can see the littering, you can see the dump site, for instance, in Dandora. So these are things we can be able to see and feel, and that should press us enough to identify and see how can we be more sustainable with what we do. Is it at the point of production, what we use? For instance, if it's packaging solutions, if you're going to buy lunch somewhere, if they're not offering sustainable packaging solutions, why not ask them why they're not offering? So it starts with us and probing. And, for instance, if a business owner realizes that people are questioning why they're not offering sustainable solutions, you will really push them to the right direction of, for instance, stopping to use plastic packaging boxes to go into a more sustainable aspect. And of course, it's going to fetch slightly a higher price. So we need to also be willing to pay that higher price, but for a more sustainable future for ourselves.
All right. A sustainable future for ourselves. In one sentence, what does that future look like in an ideal setup where all stars align and all ducks are in a row? What does that future look like for you in this space? How do you envision it?
Okay, I've just said a green future, but let me break it down further. I'd say a future where, one, there's no waste or there's minimal waste. Let's start from there. A future where we're using more of renewable energy solutions in everything that we do. I dream of the day where we'll all be using, we'll be using immobile vehicles, from the vehicles that we use, from the motorcycles and the likes, or even stopping using vehicles altogether, cycling, just like people in the European countries do. But then not looking at what our lifestyle, rather looking at our lifestyles differently and in a more sustainable manner, based on what we eat, what we drive, what we wear, just incorporating or inculcating sustainability in everything or in all aspects of how we live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're an African. Are you a consumer of proverbs and sayings and stuff like that? As we wrap this up, leave us with one it could be from your native language that you think someone I hope you're not one of those people that says, I understand, but I can't speak. So if you have a proverb, a saying that you want to leave us with as we wrap up this episode.
All right. I'll not go the vernacular way. Just to save us. But I'd say the future lies in our hands, yeah? We are the ones to define how that looks like, and it starts now. Doesn't start tomorrow, it starts now, and that's basically in everything that we do all around.
All right.
Yeah.
So the future lies with us, not on anyone else's hands.
That green future. Yeah.
It's within our hands. It is within grasp. It is a dream within reach.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
On that note, we wrap up this episode of Sustainably Speaking Africa, where we advance sustainability through narratives of change. We've been here with Eunice Maraga, a senior investment analyst at KCIC. Thank you so much for joining us for this particular session. And thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.